You all set, Tommy?
All set.
And you prefer Les, right? L-E-S.
Yeah.
And Schrenk, S-C-H-R-E-N.
Schrenk.
Schrenk, okay.
You got it?
S-C-H-R-E-N-K?
K.
Just a K, no C in there, okay.
It used to be, way back when, it used to be a CK.
It did. We changed it. It's a
But,
good German
I don't
name,
know.
like we talked about.
Somewhere my grandfather or somebody dropped the C. Why, I don't know. I have an idea. It's when they came from Germany to the United States, and there was a lot of misspellings because a lot of people didn't even know how to spell their name.
Yeah.
And the person checking them in spelled it the way he thought it should be.
It should be, yeah. And you grew up in Long Prairie, correct? Late
correct.
1920s. You're born in 1923. Okay. And you grew up on a farm, right?
That's right.
How old were you when you went in the military then?
I enlisted on my 19th birthday.
And you did it because I know back then there was a lot of, this was a world war.
World War, I did it for several reasons. One, to get away from the farm, and the other is because my brother was 2 years older than I, and he was in the military. And of course, a little brother wants to do what big brother is doing.
And there was a big time wave of patriotism, it seems like.
Yes,
too.
everybody contributed. Even the housewives would save scrap fat and everything for munitions. Some of the women even gave up their girdle because it had some rubber in it.
Those went all the way down. There was a full-fledged commitment.
There was a full-fledged, and I'm afraid if we went to war today, we would not have that patriotism at all.
Yeah,
I mean, our whole country right now is divided.
Yeah, it definitely is, and that's sad to see.
Oh, that's very sad to see.
Yeah. And so you went into the Air Force or Army?
I enlisted because my brother was in the Air Force, and actually I wanted to be in the Air Force.
And you ended up in Europe, and you flew. Pot of Gold was the name of what? Squadron?
Pot of Gold was the name of the airplane we were shot down in. It was not our airplane. The airplane that we should have had was flown by another crew before we got there. And it was so badly shot up that we never even saw it. And we were flying what was known as spare airplanes. And when we were shot down in Pot of Gold, naturally, we claimed it for our airplane, although we did not get to name it.
So you had been on several missions where you guys had successfully gotten through without being shot, correct?
No.
This was your first mission?
No.
Okay.
Oh,
over in Europe.
Wait a minute, I misunderstood. When you said not being shot, I meant not having bullet holes in the airplane.
Yeah.
No, that was our 10th mission that we got shot down on.
Okay, and talk about that. That day, take us through. The Germans knew you were coming, or what happened there exactly, Les? Take us through that if you don't mind.
Well, it started out a mission to Denmark, and we were elated because any mission that wasn't in German territory wasn't defended nearly as well as a mission to actual Germany, so we were elated. But then we found out that we were being sent there as a decoy. There was only a very small contingent of B-17s. If I remember right, it was somewhere 24 airplanes that were sent as a decoy to lure the Luftwaffe away from the main targets in the Ruhr. And that day we got to the target, but it was so overcast that we didn't drop our bombs. Now, if it would have been Germany, we would have found a secondary target and dropped the bombs, but over what we considered friendly territory, you would not do that. We had been attacked quite a bit on the way in, a lot of flak, and we were on our way home, and being attacked by Ju-88s and Me-109s, and the first thing I saw was a plane just to our left got hit. I followed it all the way, no parachute, nothing. It crashed into the ocean. I knew right away, of course, that everybody was dead. about 2 minutes later, it was our turn to get hit, and it was a massive explosion. We were trailing fire, I would say a good 30, 35 feet. And I heard the pilot come on asking the navigator, where's the nearest land? And the navigator came back immediately and said, 20 minutes due east. In other words, we had 20 minutes of flying time to get back to the coast. And during that time, there was just one explosion after another. They were so severe that they would completely blow the fire out. Then from the hot metal, they would re-erupt, and then there'd be another explosion. And this kept on for the full 10 minutes. And just as we barely crossed over the coast, there was one loud final explosion, and the whole wing blew off. And that's when we bailed out, of course.
Parachuted and you landed on land and were captured pretty quick, or what happened there?
Well, the German pilot that shot us down, of course, radioed ahead of exactly where we'd be landing. And so they knew exactly where we were there, and we were captured immediately. But back to the bailout again, I just want to say a couple words about that.
Yeah, absolutely.
The right waist gunner got to the door ahead of me, and for some reason he hesitated jumping out, and I gave him a great big kick in the rear, and he went flying out. I jumped next, waited for a few seconds to pull the ripcord. When I did, the chute didn't open. And I immediately grabbed, it was a chest pack, so I grabbed and pulled the drogue chute out, and that's all it took. It blossomed out, and I landed safely. The only thing was, in the parachutes they gave us for the airmen, they gave us very, very small chutes as compared to the paratroopers. And the reason for that is because so many of the Luftwaffe pilots would shoot the airmen in the air as they descended to the ground, and of course, a smaller parachute lessens the time you're in the air. And I landed like a ton of brick. And even in training, they told us that the rate of descent would be about the same as jumping off of a two-story building. And it really slammed you into the ground. And of course, there was a semicircle of Germans all pointing their gun at me, and I didn't have the least chance of escape.
Yeah. And this was what month was this? Was before Normandy, right? How far?
Oh yeah, 6 months before Normandy.
Okay. So January.
This would have been February 6th. Pardon me, February 22nd, 1944. That I bailed out.
What was it like? And they took you to POW camp or prison in Denmark, correct?
No.
Oh, okay.
They interrogated us in Denmark, but not that much. We were sent to the prison camp in Frankfurt for the main interrogation. It took us 3 days to get there. All during that time, we had absolutely no food at all. We did have minimum amount of water, but not nearly enough water. And I can still remember interrogation. It was terrible. They had you in this great big room. You had no idea what to expect. In the background, you heard all kind of cries for help, begging the person to stop, cursing in German, and even occasional gunshot. And this went on for maybe a couple hours, that you were just sitting there knowing that your turn was coming. And the German guard would come and take one prisoner at a time. It was a one-way trip. You never saw the person again because after they'd done with him, they took him out of a different entrance.
And so they interrogated you pretty hard then?
Well, it went like this. Well, the first place I'm going to describe the German guard. If Hollywood would have picked him, they couldn't have done a better job. The first thing you noticed, his right arm was missing at about the elbow. Then the second thing you noticed, he had a real deep scar across his face, so deep that it completely took out his left eye. He was a kind of a short, squatty guy. He carried what we call a burp gun, what they call the burp gun, which is a submachine gun, about the equivalent of our submachine guns, and he would prod you which way he wanted you to go. He got me into this room where this German officer was, and the first thing the German officer acted just like he was my friend. Would you like to have a cigarette? Would you, here's a chair, would you like to sit? And I said, no, sir, I wish to remain standing, and I don't smoke. And, well, he said, just a second, we know all about you. And to my amazement, he went in a file, he dug through the file, and he came out with a folder. Oh, yeah, Schrenk, we know all about you. Your mother's name is so-and-so, your father's name is so-and-so, you came from a dairy farm, you had a brother and a sister. Yeah, we know all about you. And
that amazed you?
Then, well, yeah, it just...
How far back there?
Yeah, you just didn't know what to think. Then he says, you seem to be one of the lucky ones. You don't seem to be wounded too badly. And I said, that's right, sir. He says, well, in that case, I'm sure you want your mother and father to know that you're okay. And I said, well, certainly, sir. Well, we do that through the Red Cross. And he handed me the form to fill out. Of course, I put down my mother's and father's name and their address, because he already had that. And then all the rest of it was military, like what kind of a plane you were flying, what kind of bombs you were carrying, what your intended target was, what targets you had been briefed on, just endless. So I handed it back to him. Oh, he just flew into a rage. He took his gun and whammed me across my head where it really hurt. I felt stars. And again, he says, don't you think we know that you flew at a B-17? Write it down. And of course, I gave my name, rank, and serial number like we were instructed to do. And every time I would do it, he would hammer me across the head with his pistol, and the German guard behind me would jab me in the back with the barrel of his gun. And this went on for I don't know how long. I'm sure it wasn't that long, but it certainly felt like it was a long time. And then right at the very last, he pointed the gun right at my temple. He says, you had better answer the next question or else. And of course, you think back to those gunshots you heard. And I finally composed myself, and I gave my name, rank, and serial number. He slapped me across the face and booted me in the guard behind me booted me in the rear, and that was the end of our interrogation. Wow. And I found out later on that if you would have given even the least bit of information, you would have been beaten to a pulp, them trying to get more information. And
so you played that right in the end.
I did it right, but oh, was that ever scary.
Yeah, I bet it was. Geez, I'm sorry you went through that. And then you were liberated how much after that? When were you able to, how long were you in Frankfurt, or how long were you in?
Well, they loaded us on a boxcar, but it was wintertime, snow on the ground. They took our shoes and stockings away to keep us from escaping, and made us march to where the train station was. If I remember right, it wasn't that far, maybe a half mile or so, and took us to Stalag 6, which is Heidekrug, East Prussia. I was there for 6 months. The Russians were advancing, and they were either going to liberate the camp or else they would have to evacuate us. So the Germans decided to evacuate us. This is the summertime. They marched us over some boxcars, started loading us about noon. It was hot as the dickens, and every time the car was full, they would jab the guys in the doorway, and they'd go back, they'd put a couple more people in. Finally, the boxcar absolutely could not hold any more, and they slammed the door shut. And all there was a little crack of light. That was the only ventilation we had. It's hot as the dickens. You can imagine what it felt like in there. That night they took us to Memel, Lithuania, and loaded us into a coal ship. And again, the hold in that coal ship was so overcrowded. You for 3.5 days I stood there with the rest of them. No sanitation. We all had severe dysentery. You relieved yourself right where you stood. It was just unbearable. Then 3.5 days later, they got to Poland, and had us loaded us into a boxcar and took us overnight to what's now known as Stalag 4, Grościechow, Poland. There was a red-headed captain. He says, "This is your lucky day. Today, not only are you going to get one Red Cross parcel, you're going to get 2 of them." And good heavens, a Red Cross parcel, you never got a whole Red Cross parcel. You were just skin and bones by that time, because they actually forced you to get dysentery by feeding you rotten fish and things like that. The can would ooze and bubble and everything, and that's what you ate. So naturally we had dysentery. But anyway, as soon as they had the Red Cross parcel handed out, I heard the order, affix bayonets. I could speak German, by the way. And then they unleashed some vicious police dogs, and that's known as the Heidekrug Run. Before that, they made us put our overcoats on and shackled us in 2. So here you are with the parcel under each arm, attached to another guy, being chased by bayonets and dogs. The run was about 5 kilometers, in other words, about 3 miles, and practically everybody dropped their parcels. I was so desperate that I somehow managed to keep both of them, but that's a very hard thing to do, because your partner is swinging his arm, and by the time you got there, I mean, your wrist was just absolutely raw. We hadn't had anything to drink now for 4.5 days, nothing to eat for 4.5 days. And there was some pumps, and the German guards would fill their pump water, fill it, dump it towards us, knowing how famished we were. And all of a sudden, one of the guys started singing "God Bless America," and we all joined in. And oh, did that ever infuriate the Germans? They finally said, if you don't quit singing, we start shooting. And we knew they meant it, because from the way they had treated us. And so we didn't sing anymore. But then it was time for the strip, what we call the strip search. They took one person in at a time, made him completely undress and go through all his belongings to make sure that he didn't have any escape kits or anything like that. When I got there, and I still had both my Red Cross parcels, and here the guy that was going to search me was one of the meanest guards that you can imagine from the other camp. He stood about I think they were 6'7". I mean, he was a whopper of a guy. And what he would do is take his rifle butt and stamp it on somebody's arches, trying to break their arches. Other times he'd come and cuff their ear with his hand, trying to break their eardrums. I mean, that's the type of person he was. And here he was going to be the guard that was going to take care of me. But anyway, I told him in no uncertain, those are Red Cross parcels, they're mine. Oh, he took his pistol and hit me on the head. I fell on the ground, regained myself. Again, told him that they were mine. 5 different times he hit me across the head. 5 different times I said that they were mine, and I knew at last that if I had to keep on, he was going to kill me. I still had all my clothes on and all my belongings, so I let him take the parcels. The minute he was out of my sight, I grabbed my stuff and ran out to the guy that had already been searched and hid my whole head was just blood. I hid my head under my overcoat, pretending I was asleep. He came out, went back and forth, cursing in German, looking for me, and finally he had to give up and went inside. Wow. You know, otherwise, if he would have found me, I'm sure that would have been
big trouble at that point.
That would have been the end of me.
Les, talk a little bit about, so all those years, though, after, you wondered about this German pilot, because you were a gunner, right?
Right.
You wondered about this guy that shot you. Hans was his name. Can you talk about finally meeting him? That was 10 years ago or so?
Oh, that's more than, yeah, about 10. Oh, more than that now.
You always wondered about this guy because he could have finished you off, right?
He was one of the good German Luftwaffe pilots. Like I said, most of them, if you parachuted, they would shoot you in the parachute. Not only did he could have kept on shooting at us when the plane was on fire, knowing fully well that we would have hit the water and drowned, but he didn't do that. He didn't shoot at us when we bailed out. He could have done that. And when we went to the crash site, I had mentioned to the Danes that I said, after we were captured, this high-ranking German officer came and was looking at us, and I said, I think he was maybe the pilot that shot us down. And I said, I would have liked to have talked to him and thanked him for saving our lives. And this one Dane said, why don't I help you find him? And like I said, it took 4.5 years, but it was all on his part because he was close to Germany. He could speak fluent German and everything. And he finally got a lead of a number to call, and he called, and this woman answered the phone, and he said, told her who he was, and that her husband had shot me down during World War II, and I was grateful. I wanted to put flowers on his grave. And she says, what do you mean put flowers on his grave? He's sitting right here beside me.
And you, from there, organized a chance to meet him.
From there, I sent him the first email telling him, the events of that day. Because I had no idea if he would remember it or not, because I'm sure that, he had quite
a lot of firefights and stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
And quite a while later, I got a letter from him, and after about 4 or 5 different letters back and forth, he invited me to come over to Heidelberg to visit him.
What was that? What were your thoughts going into that, and what was it like to meet him? That's surreal, isn't it?
I was looking forward to it because, from his letters, you could tell he was overly friendly, waiting to meet me. And when I got there, we hugged each other, and it was like we were old buddies. And then I started talking about the events of the day we got shot down. He remembered them just like it was yesterday.
Why did he say he didn't finish you off?
Here's his exact word. He says, "I knew you were already out of the war," and he said, "Yes, I could have shot you, but why should I?" Is exactly what he said.
What was your reaction when you heard that?
Well, I mean, praise for the guy. I mean, most of the pilots, if it would have been anybody else, I wouldn't be here today.
Do you think he was just tired of the killing and the war at that point?
I think so, yes, because I know he was telling us that even after he said, when I knew that the war had been lost, he said, they made me still go out and drop bombs. And he said, why should I? He said, I would take the load of bombs and drop them out in someone's field. He says, why should I keep on destroying Germany when the war was already lost?
And why keep killing people?
Yeah.
And here he let you live in your crew, and you went on and married Bernice, right?
Right.
75 years, is that right? Was she from Long Prairie?
No, she was from Henning, which is a little
Ottawa County.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry you lost her last August, right? But you guys had a good life together, a good marriage. I mean, what was it? She was like your best friend. I mean, what was Bernice?
We had 75 years together. We celebrated a 75th wedding anniversary in May, and she, of course, died in August.
Okay. And this is life now for you. With her gone, you water aerobics, you're able to do something.
You carry on as best you can. Certainly you miss someone, but what else are you going to do? You have to carry on.
And Brian has also, I think, helped you connect with some of these groups and spoken to some of these groups in recent years.
Yes.
Then. Okay.
Yes, he has.
Wow. And really, the last couple of questions I have for you, Les, you've done very well, and we'll let you get a drink of water. I'm sure you've been talking for 20 minutes, but you've never been to Normandy. What makes you want to go now as a 100-year-old man?
All my life, my wife and I traveled all the world over. I love to travel. Why not go to Normandy? That's one place I haven't been. There's a good many places I would still like to go, but at my age, going alone is a little bit different than going with a great big group.
Yeah. And is there anything in particular you're looking forward to? I don't know if the German ace pilot is still around. If he's
no, he died about 5 years ago.
So, but you're just going to go and see like all the sacrifices made. You made them. Your crew made them. How many people were in your crew, by the way, on that? 10 in that plane. Pot of gold guys. In the Caterpillar, didn't you get a Caterpillar recognition for escaping the plane while it was on fire? Brian was telling me about that as well. Okay.
Right.
And then, but this will be a good place to meet other veterans like yourself.
That's right.
For the 80th anniversary. Do you think this will be the only time you go? Would you be open to going in the future, or is this a one-time deal?
I'm hoping that I can go again, but I'm not sure that I'll be eligible to.
Okay.
But I'm hoping. I would love to travel.
You're looking for, is there anything in particular you're looking forward to seeing at Normandy, or anybody you're looking forward to meeting at Normandy?
Well, there's one person that I met last November on our veterans trip to Washington, D.C., kept in touch with her, and she said she'd definitely like to see me again.
So you might meet her over there.
Right.
Okay.
She's a chaperone for some kind of fighter pilot. I believe it's P-47, but I'm not positive.
Is there anything on the itinerary or agenda that you think it looks really interesting to do or see that they've told you about, or just in general being there is enough for you?
Just in general being there. I know I'm going to love the trip on the Seine River, and of course seeing the beaches at Normandy.
And you were in a POW camp while that was going on then, right? Were you
Yes.
still in? Okay.
Yes.
And liberated, how long after that then?
Liberated May 3rd, 1945.
Okay, okay. So right before Normandy you were liberated then, it sounds like. Oh no, that was 44. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
1944. Yeah, so
Yeah,
a year or
after.
so, almost a year after.
After.
Last question I have for you, unless Tommy's got one or anything we didn't ask you about. Can you talk a little more about Bernice? What was it about Bernice that made you guys have this great relationship? You traveled the world together. Can you just talk about what stands out to you about your wife? Like her was it her personality, her sense of humor, her love for life? What was it about Bernice that just attracted you?
Well, she liked to do quite the same thing that I did. We met at the dance, and that was one thing we both enjoyed doing. And then, of course, like I said, we traveled the world over, and we had a daughter that was in a diplomat in foreign service, and we used to go visit her a lot. I mean,
You had one child together, is that right?
one child, but we lost her 3 years ago with ovarian cancer.
Sorry to hear that. Okay. So you've had some loss in your life, and you trials and tribulations, and here you are 100 years old going to Normandy for the first time. And what a story, Les. That's crazy. Tom, do you have any questions, or Les, anything we didn't ask you about? Tommy, do you have anything?
You know, unless you could probably talk to John with this, but just, you know, I mean, how proud are you about what you did?
How proud are you of serving your country and the sacrifices you made and
Well,
being here today?
I don't think I did anything extraordinary. I mean, I did what I had to do, because what would anybody else do in the same situation?
Yeah.
I'm glad I lived to tell about it.
Do you enjoy talking to other groups now? Like I know Brian's brought you, or you know he's watched you.
To me, yes and no. I mean, I'm always afraid that I'm going to fall flat in my face sometime, but make a fool out of myself. But outside of that, it doesn't bother me to talk about it. I've put all the bad things behind me a long, long time ago.
Good. Is that a message you have for other people? Like, you know, the greatest generation went through some real trials and tribulations more than the rest of us have. But no matter what adversity you face in life, there are better days ahead. Or what would you say about that, Les?
Well, I don't know if I'm going to even answer your question, but you know, I never used to talk about my war experiences at all, like most veterans. And then my daughter was growing up, and she kept on saying, "Dad, we don't know anything of what you went through or anything. One of these days you're going to die. I won't have any idea of what you went through or anything like that." And she kept on prodding me, and pretty quick my wife joined her and prodded as well. And I figured, well, to get them off my back, I'll write an article. And I wrote an article about the ball turret. Well, lo and behold, I found out the more I wrote, the easier it was to write. And it kind of lifted the weight off my shoulders. And then when I visited the crash site, there went another load off my shoulders. And then, of course, when I made friends with the German pilot, that was kind of the closure of everything. And to talk about my experiences now doesn't bother me in the least.
Good. That's great.
One question. I think Les is the hero, but he'll never say that. He didn't get the chance to tell you about the death march that he was on when they transferred from one POW camp to another in the middle of winter.
Yeah.
And who Les views as the heroes.
Well, do you want to talk about that real quickly, Les? About you didn't have any socks or shoes on these death marches, right? I always wondered about that, and that's the Germans made you take them off. But who was the hero on the death march you did?
Who was the hero?
Or the heroes?
Oh, I'll tell you,
right?
there was a lot of heroes. The German death march came about because the Allies were closing in from the west, the Russians were closing in from the east. The Germans would either had let one or the other liberate us or evacuate the camp. And of course, there had been so much of Germany captured and raided by the Allies that there wasn't any room in any of the camps. So that's the reason the German death march. It was just a march to nowhere. You never saw the inside of a heated building. You hardly got anything to eat. You had one blanket. You formed a group a group of 5 because one blanket would cover from one person to the other, except it wouldn't drape across the ones on the edges. So when you slept there during the night, you would rotate, trying to keep body heat amongst, and it lasted for 86 days, and we were finally liberated by the English Army. They treated us very well.
And that feeling of being liberated was what?
Oh, it was just actually, we were so far gone that it took me several hours to even realize that we were free. When we were liberated by some English guys chasing Germans. So, I mean, they weren't even fit to liberate us or anything. They just went past us, and they told us we'd have to walk. It was quite a distance. I think it was 21 kilometers to the nearest British outpost. And of course, when, I don't think I told you, but when I was captured, I weighed 185 pounds. When I was liberated, I weighed 93. And that wasn't until about a week or 2 after I was liberated. But anyway, we were in such poor shape. And when the British liberated us, they just told us we'd have to go on our own. So, like I said, I don't think I even really realized. But anyway, we came to a place where there had been a scrimmage, and there was a bunch of dead Germans laying around. And to this day, I don't know why, but I took one of their rifles. And we kept on going, and we came past a farmhouse that had a couple horses. And I told the guys, I said, we're not going to walk anymore. We're going to go in and commandeer those horses. So I knocked on the door, and this woman opened up the door, and, oh, please, I'm Polish, don't hurt me. And I assured her that we meant her no harm, and I said, I want to see the maester of the house. When he came, I pointed the gun at him. I said, we're taking your horses. We've got, we're taking them to such and such a town, and if you want to, you can come and get them when we're done with them. Oh, no, please don't take my horses. They're lame. And I said, we're taking your horses. Well, what if I hitch up the tractor and give you a ride? And I said, it'll be just fine. So I made him take us. Then all the stragglers along the road, I made him pick them all up. And like I said, it was quite a distance to the camp.
When did you get the joystick and the identification?
When
you met Hans?
No. When we took our trip to the crash site in Denmark.
They had that for you there still.
No. They had metal detectors, and we actually found the turret handle and that as the cameras were rolling.
That is insane, isn't it? That's crazy. The chances of that happening are pretty slim, I would think.
Well, not only that, but the owner of the land said that for years, kids had been scouring that field for show and tell, and somehow they missed that data plate. The real heroes are the ones on the death march, when their buddies were so weak and couldn't keep up with the march. Everybody called it a march, but actually it was staggering because we were so far gone, and if they couldn't keep up, they knew fully well that the Germans would shoot them. So they literally carried their buddies on their back or whatever way they could, knowing fully well that they'd never be recognized for their deeds or anything like that. It was just because they wanted to save their buddy from getting killed.
Pretty admirable, to say the least, right?
Yes.
Good.
They are, to me, they're the true heroes.